to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. You know, since the early days of the show, all the way with Erica Ward back in episode number 6, I've talked with designers who have come from other careers into interior design. Some have had a passion for design but never pursued it. Others stumbled into it accidentally through designing their own homes. Everybody's story has been just a little different. And my guest today has a story that is also unique. Chanae Richards of Oloro Interiors came into design through a very unconventional route. She started out in financial administration. You're going to hear how she puts those Erica Ward transferable skills to use. But her story is even more unique in that not in just that design is her second career. And before we hear from Chanae, I'd like to take a moment to thank our show sponsor, MyDoma Studio, your complete designer toolkit. MyDoma makes it easy to streamline your processes, track your projects, communicate with clients, and get organized once and for all. It's created by designers for designers, specifically to address what you need to address as an interior design firm. I've said countless times that systems and processes are how you reach the next level of profitability. MyDoma Studio makes it easy to do that. You can get 20% off your first 3 months by going to mydomastudio.com/a well-designed business. Now, I'm very, very happy to introduce Chanae to you and hear the lessons that she has to share with us. Hi, Chanae. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, LuAnn. Nice to be here.
It is nice. I mean, it's nice for me. That's the thing. Chanae, we have been friends. It's going to be 6 years this May since we met each other the first time at a live event. And of course, we've seen each other a few times since then. And I have just loved watching you build your interior design career. And what I love the most is, you know, we put a post up recently when we were getting ready to interview, and we used the word jubilant. I can't say it. We can print it, but I can't say it. Because that's what you are. You're just, when I watch you and follow you in your Instagram, there is an energy that comes through that it just makes me smile. And so I'm so glad that we're finally doing this after all these years.
This is a long time coming, and I'm really excited about our conversation.
Yeah. So all the years that I've known you, you know what I've never asked you? What does the name of your interior design firm mean? Oloro Interiors. What does it have a meaning? What's the backstory?
I have a family-based business and wanted to incorporate my family name somehow. Our last name is very, very common, and no one wanted another Rich Interiors. Oloro means rich and wealthy in the West African language of Yoruba, and I thought that was very, very impactful and could be a great business name, and that's what we have.
I love it. I love it that it has some, special meaning and connection. It almost connects you to the mission and vision, right? To create a rich and wealthy life and business and all of the things. So that's it's a very powerful reminder every day. I'll bet when you open up your computer and you're like going to send an email from Oloro Interiors, right?
Exactly.
Love it, love it, love it. Now, I also do know that this interior design is your second career, that you come from a previous work experience that I know just does what we always say here, our Erica Ward transferable skills. So tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. Design isn't my first career. I have a background in nonprofit finance and administration, and this experience informs the way I discuss money with our clients, the ability to explain the value that they're getting and what it takes to get their space to their heart's desire. And so all of that comes from the years I spent breaking down budgets for various stakeholders.
Well, tell us how that experience, like I get it in the big picture, but get to me in the weeds. What was it about explaining it to the stakeholders that you transfer over to having the conversation with your clients?
Certainly, when you're trying to convince an audience to spend X amount of $1 million on a school to build a new building for a certain resource, you have to use those same skills to explain to a client why this repair is necessary before they start on the work on their homes. And so there's a lot of convincing that it takes to get one from that concept, that great design idea to completion. And there's a lot of money involved, right? And so you just have to be able to explain the value and all of that.
And so what you're saying is when you're completely knowledgeable, and like for instance, you mentioned somebody might have to do extensive repair work before they can get to the pretty with you. So you need to be very confident in that repair work needs to be done. I guess what I'm imagining is the way you were very confident that the money needed for this very worthy school or wing or project was valid. So is that what we're saying? It's that confidence that it's to convey the importance of it?
Exactly. There's the confidence and there's the know-how behind that confidence. There's not just bringing, the showy, yes, I know it all, but it's why I know it and how I know it, and having them believe that you understand the guts to it, the meat and potatoes in it.
I love it because that's so true. I can imagine if you're going up before whatever you would go before to present to ask for the grants and the so forth for the, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. It can't just be, I'm comfortable standing up here asking for this. It's like you really have to know why and where the money is going to go toward, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Love it. So great takeaway from your first career. Now, you mentioned to me that as you transitioned in becoming an interior designer, that you had an unconventional route to building your business. Share with us what that means.
Sure. So I started my firm in December 2016, and I took several routes to get where I am today. I didn't have any clients at first. As a baby designer, you have nothing, no book of business. And so I had to cut my teeth in the industry in a couple of different ways. First, the sort of conventional way. I got an internship with David Tiergartner. He's an interior designer based in the Garment District of Manhattan, specializes in coastal interiors, and had a bunch of clients in California and Italy. I actually remember my first time at the D&D. It was with David, and I remember the very day I pulled my first furniture sample with him and fabric
Mm.
sample. Then the unconventional, right? I needed to make money. An internship was cool, but what I did was pretty, I would say, revolutionary. I had a commercial space in Brooklyn and I would use it for 1 day rentals to production companies, television networks, and individuals who wanted to use it for the purpose of taking pictures or videos. Now it was beautifully decorated, and some of the brands I worked with along the way were National Geographic, Grubhub, and the Travel Channel. And it was a commercial loft. So we had our share of bridal showers, engagement parties, and content creators who just wanted this pre-decorated space. It also had an incredible view of the city. And so that space had a coffee table, a desk, and a couple of chairs. And if folks wanted more, if they wanted another layer of decoration, I added prop styling as an add-on. And so, that was the way I started. And then one day, a huge company that sells soaps and candles asked if that space had a bathroom. And I knew it didn't, but I didn't want to tell them that. So I offered them offer them a separate space, and that was my apartment in Harlem, and they booked it. So began my journey of using my personal space in Harlem and this commercial space in Brooklyn for this rental venture. Greeting card companies, photographers, and others were booking the space for photo shoots, and that was pretty neat. And so after 2 years and nearly 500 bookings, I made several connections with amazing folks. And so that's how I kind of got into design. It was production design. And, you know, it wasn't easy. Revenue wasn't consistent. And in those moments, I relied on the girl in me who understand the importance of providing people with value and ease. And so I remember the story of you selling clocks out of the back of your trunk, LuAnn, and that
In Philly,
resonated.
where you are.
Yeah, and that resonated deeply because when design clients weren't consistent and when those bookings at rentals were slow, I would sell plants. Yes, actual trees. I would sell the leftover fiddle leaf figs, monsteras, and snake plants from photo shoots, or just get a bunch from my distributor in Philly and drive them up to New York and sell them out my trunk for 5 times what I got them for. And so to me, that was doing what I had to do in the short term to get to do what I want to do in the long term. And that's a part of the journey I appreciate.
That's amazing. That's so funny that we shared that. Knives, clocks, pictures, all the things out of the back of my car. Oh, that's so funny. You're a little scrappy though. You actually went and bought the things and sold them. I actually was working through a distributorship. That was you consigned it out in the morning, and the big thing was to not come in at the end of the day. And I swear to goodness, Chanae, every single person that was my coworker was a man that was probably in his, I thought like was old. They were probably in their 30s and 40s. And I was like 18. And I was like, I am not coming back with an empty trunk. Not me. Not one chance am I going to be this girl that comes back with an empty trunk. So that's so funny. So, all right. So let's pick this apart a little. So the commercial space in Brooklyn, it was a rented space, or that was a space at that point in your life, in your career, you had purchased it?
That was a rented space.
Okay. And so I'm just going to go from a practical standpoint, because you know how many people listen to the show and then think, I want to do that. Did you have to, is there any legal reason that you had to have a conversation with a landlord, either at that location or if your apartment was also a rented apartment in Harlem? Or is it like, hey, don't ask, don't tell? Like, that's what I would have done, but I'm asking you for the real things, right?
So in the commercial space, there were other folks in the building who had different kind of businesses. This was just another business for us.
Okay. Okay.
The,
So that was
the
fine.
That's right. And the commercial space was rented, like I mentioned, but the apartment was mine. And so that was also don't ask, don't tell, because we were in a place that had others in there, but it was still mine. So
Right. Oh, I can't use this for commercial purposes, right? Okay, I won't do it tomorrow. We're going to finish today though, right? Okay. So how did you, 500 different bookings over 2 years. Where did you find the first booking? Was it the sort of thing, Chanae, where somebody asked you and then you went, oh, I could make that happen? Or did you think of it and then go dig it up like you were, digging up trying to, sell plants out of the trunk?
we thought of it, and when I say me, I'm talking about my team.
Mm.
We thought of it, and then we sought after. We thought about it, and then got the space in Brooklyn. The commercial space was available, and so we then got clients first from Craigslist, and that was less than ideal. And so we then started using a platform that was pretty new back then. I think we were one of 10 people in the beta stage of that platform. Right now, it's the largest, I think they call it peer-to-peer sharing platform in the world. And I think we were one of the first 10
Wow.
in New York. And so we got to leverage this opportunity of being one of the first 10 and one of their only commercial spaces. And so in the first year or so, we were one of their most profitable.
Wow.
One of our most profitable too.
Wow. Is it a platform we would all know and have heard
Yes,
about?
it's Peerspace.
Oh,
Peerspace.
that's what it's called, is Peerspace. Oh, so
Yep.
everybody but me has heard of it.
Well, maybe you haven't heard of it, LuAnn. I'm
No,
shocked.
no.
You're
But
able to
you
book these
can't go by
spaces,
me.
LuAnn, any
Oh,
kind of space. It could be you could be
oh,
get it for a birthday party, a bridal shower, or
oh.
to get a photo shoot, right? To get a
Sure.
beautifully designed space that have everything you need, and you can just get it for 1 day, 3 days a month, 2 days a month, 2 months maybe, whatever you need it for, whatever duration, you can get the space, and it comes at an hourly rate. And so it's not like folks are staying in your house like
Mm.
an Airbnb. They're
Hmm.
there to do the thing and then they leave.
Right, right. No, and what's interesting is I have rented spaces like that for the photo shoots for the various book covers, but I didn't know that there was a platform that would make it a whole lot easier than the long tail way that we've come up with them.
There is.
Let me call 10 people I know and see if they know of a place.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So actually, you rented the Brooklyn loft in order to do this. So it wasn't like you had the loft and thought, how can I put this to work for me? So that was a risk, and that's interesting that you did that. And of course, what you're saying is after the 2 years and 500 bookings, this created the beginning of the referral base for your business, because who became a full-time design client, is that, or referred you, is that the bridge there, or where are we going
Exactly.
next? Okay.
That is exactly how that bridge occurred. Because of the connections I've made, I started doing larger design projects for folks who I met through those bookings. Talent agents remember you, booking agents remember you. And
Mm,
so those relationships were very important and helped to bridge that gap.
interesting, very interesting. And so what's interesting about this is that when you think about, if somebody hypothetically said, I want to be an interior designer. I've got my education. I've just done an internship. I have my chops. I know what I want to do. Oh, but it's not working out. I don't have any clients. Should I start a renting space for people, and blah, 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 while I try and build my design business? I can hear it in my head. You could line up probably 10 business coaches, and probably more than 50% would say, don't divert your attention, right? But you did it because you didn't ask anybody's permission, which sometimes is the best thing in the world, right? And it worked for you. But that's an interesting thing. Was it an intuition thing, Chanae, that you were just like saying to yourself, I know this is a little left turn here, but I feel like this is the way to do it?
I didn't know how to do anything. I went to school for public finance and didn't know anything but being gritty. And so I did the calculation on what it would take to rent this apartment or this loft in Brooklyn and how, much we could potentially make from it. And I started to look for clients. And I know this is an unconventional path, this renting of a space to do something else in. I just didn't know how else to get clients. I didn't know how else to have folks believe in me or trust in me, but I knew that there was a short-term rental market out there that wasn't tapped into very well,
Mm.
because I knew what we were being asked after that first month or two. I saw the amount of volume that we were getting. And like I said, there were a lot of folks that weren't there for photo shoots. There were folks from industries who I wouldn't have a continual relationship with design wise. And like I said, there were folks who were there for bridal showers and baby showers and engagement parties, but there were folks there from TV shows that needed some prop design,
Mm.
and folks who just liked the design of the place and wanted to know if I could do their place as well. And so that's how those relationships started.
Very, very cool. I love it. And when you were, was there any point, like while you were doing that? So now you're doing this thing, and you're starting these. Are you designing while this is still going on in these 2 years, or this was 2 years focused on that, and then the leveraged relationships for the design after the fact?
I would say towards the latter part of the 2 years, I started picking up more design clients. And when I saw that that became more lucrative than this day-to-day renting, I wanted to get out of the grind. It felt like a rat race. You're having bookings every day and having to clean them. And then we got to a place where we were hiring cleaners, but it was just wanting to get out of that day-to-day,
It
and
was
being able
becoming
to.
its own business,
It
basically. Like
was,
it was
and
becoming
and
a
it did.
profitable business. Yeah.
It did. It did.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
then that was that choice. Like at that point, you could have said, hey, I love this. I didn't set out to create this, but that would have been a profitable, sustainable business. But you still had your sights on interior design. And of course, this was starting to feed the foundation for that, right?
Exactly. No, and then there were other things that we saw in the pipeline that were coming. We knew that the building owner of the commercial loft that he was planning on selling in the next 2 years. So we knew we wouldn't have that space forever.
Mm,
And then, so thinking about how we could make it most profitable for us in 2 years, that was helpful, knowing that we weren't going to be there for a very long time.
right. The writing was on the wall, and
Yep.
you knew we were going to have to make a shift anyway,
Yep.
right? Okay. And just to go back, I asked about the first career, but I didn't ask where the germ and the desire for going into interior design came.
Oh, certainly. This is a funny story that I like to tell, and I am sorry, not sorry to this friend who asked for this favor. But years ago, I would have friends ask me to help them out with small projects around their home. And of course, you think you can help out, and you do. And then there's one time where someone asked for something extraordinarily I wouldn't say vile, but they ask for something that is so large and wild. And I think for me, I wasn't able to say no as much as
Mm.
I am now back then. So I threw this astronomical price tag on it. And the person agreed to pay me. And I said, wow, someone would pay me this amount to do work.
Oh.
And that's where it began. That's how I knew that I could make money off of this. And I just want to pause there because I think before that, it's important to see in life what you can become. And I had never seen a Black designer early in my whatever career.
Mm.
An old friend of mine used to talk about the mirrors and sliding glass door theory, and it resonates with me because mirrors enable you to see reflections of yourself in like art and many other facets of the world. And sliding glass doors give you more of an insight into the person's actual life. And Joy Mauler, I keep on saying her name wrong. I hope I get it right. Moyler is the first Black designer that I ever saw. And that was well into my 30s when I was introduced to her work. And she was my mirror. She was
Mm.
also a sliding glass doors, and that conversations with her has grown my knowledge and understanding about both the design business and the art of design. And so the same mirror applies to what you do here on the podcast. You tell folks what they can become by showing them examples. And so I didn't have an example until my early 30s, and it coincided with the time of someone asking me to help design their home. And so I figured, wow, here's this woman who does this for a living. Maybe I can do it too.
Mm.
And so that's when it happened.
Very interesting. I love
Late
that.
bloomer.
Late bloomer, right? But as our friend Erica says, you were busy gathering all of your, other skill sets and all the things that you now have turned into things that impact the outcome of your business and your projects, right?
Yeah, right.
I always say we get to where we're supposed to be when we get there, as long as we keep putting one foot in front of the other wherever we're going, right?
Yeah.
If we're not blocking ourselves with a limiting mindset or a limiting belief, if we're trusting and following our instincts, working hard, doing things, being a good human person in the world, we pretty much get where we're supposed to go, I
So
think.
true.
Yep. So, okay. And to that end, I mean that when you get to somewhere, I don't subscribe to the oh, I wish I had done it sooner. Like, I just feel like the time comes and then you can miss it. You cannot have the courage to snap at it, right? You could have missed your opportunity if you didn't have the courage to put the price tag on it that you knew you would need to get in order to do that project. That's where the intuition part comes in. Do you agree?
Yeah, and there's so many other parts that you have that intuition, that business of the space rental, that seemed to be lucrative. And if I didn't hop off at one point, maybe I could have made that more lucrative, but that's not what the end goal was. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a risk of jumping from that to this other thing that I knew I wanted. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes, it does. It does because there are many people that get like my husband calls them the golden handcuffs, right? You're starting to make money, but you're not really enjoying it. It's not really fulfilling your heart, soul, mind, all the things, but you're making money, you're paying your bills, and so it's hard to walk away and take the next risk. But that, to your point, it's where you do have to listen, and you knew it wasn't where you wanted to spend the time just because you were intellectually and design wise capable of running that type of a production company that people sought your space over other spaces because of the way it was set up, laid out, designed, all the things, right?
Right.
Yeah, so interesting, so interesting. So now you're no longer a newbie designer. Chanae, you are no longer. You do not get that moniker. You have long, long since passed newbie designer. Oh, and you know what I want to do before I do that? Let's have a moment about Joy Moyler, if you don't mind. So tell me about what it is about her work that you admire. Share with us, bring her to life for the audience, for anybody. I know you have told me about her before, and I've since followed her and know her work, but tell us about her.
She is the best designer on the face of this planet.
Mm.
And I think her work speaks for itself. And so I want to talk about the things that we can't see in her work. And that's Joy the woman.
Mm.
Joy that will pick up the phone and call you and give you advice in the middle of the night when you need it. Who will be the shoulder that you can lean on and will prop you up on your leaning side when you don't think that you can do the things that you want to do.
Mm.
So I want to talk about Joy, that person. And so I have a funny story with Joy. When I first started, I wanted some experience with design. I was a finance director back then. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just looked at the first two women that were prominent in New York City, and the first two that came up, Joy was one. And I reached out to her, emailed her, and said, "Listen, can I intern for you? I don't want any money. I will walk your dog. Do you even have a dog? Do you want a dog? I'll buy it. Do
Do you
you
need
want
trees?
Right. Banana bread. Do you need a plant care? What do you need, Joy? Just tell me what you need and I will be there." And I actually sent that to two designers. Joy was one. The other person sent me back an LOL, and I've never heard from her again. And that's so
Oh.
funny now because we just got picked for the same show house. But that's another story. But Joy answered, right? Joy answered and said, "This is very funny, and I don't know how to respond to this, but let's keep in communication." Now, she didn't have to do that,
Aw.
right? Because as a professional, as a mom, as a wife, you just have capacity for so much,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can extend yourself to but so many people. And
Mm-hmm.
Joy didn't have to do that for me, and she's done that for many, many designers. And I want
Mm.
folks to know that she is both accessible, she is honest, she is caring, she is loving. Like I said, she's a designer's designer and a very good human.
That's so nice to know. That's so awesome. I almost am a little sorry that I brought it up now because I think her inbox is going to be smashed.
I
And she's going to
know.
call you and me, go, "Ladies, what the
I
heck did you
know.
do to me?"
Joy, I'll take care of your inbox, Joy. I've been promising for years to work for you. I'll do it now.
That's it. She'll be like, "I'll be taking you up on that offer." No, that's awesome to know. And it's when I think about the support that it gave you, both, in the real times when you said that she actually, but just the encouragement, right? There's somebody like that answered, somebody that you looked up to that answered, took the time, and how much that means to us at those moments in our career when we're really trying to build ourselves up to and say, "I can do this. I can do this," right? I can do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Very good. All right. So we are moving on to you. You are, like I said, no longer a newbie. You're a rising designer now. You're heading on your way fully to seasoned designer. But actually, I would probably say you're in your seasoned designer chops phase for sure. But when you were moving into your rising designer phase, you shared with me that you made a decision about your business. Tell us about that, because that was risky, and I'm curious how you came to this decision and how did it play out for you?
Wow. Okay. So we've been 100% referral based for almost 2 years.
Mm.
I've niched myself as a designer for thinkers. And I primarily work for writers. I'm talking journalists, authors, essentially the recorders of history. In any time, but particularly this one, those who write and record what's happening around us have an extraordinarily tall order to bear witness to all these watershed moments, the mundane and everything in between. So my job is to take care of those folks. It's to provide them with the comfort and the ease and the space of rest, the conduit of rest they need for their homes. How do I came to that decision? Uh, After many years of working with folks who I just didn't know, who couldn't provide, who no one I knew, I realized it wasn't something that worked for me. Just like a client looks for referrals for you, I need to be able to ask someone about your temperament and how you operate as a human. And so I now, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, since I'm also running the center, I need to be able to work with clients who I know I'll be able to work with. And I hope that makes sense to folks, because you'll reach a point where there will be people that you can't work with, right?
We're
So
closed today.
and so being 100% referral based means that I'm able to ask someone else about how you operate, just like you're able to find referrals for us.
Interesting. So it's not just referral based, but you also are looking to niche specifically to people who have a particular profession, which is kind of interesting into itself. Is that how you came to meet Christine Platt? You should have seen me, Chanae. when I was listening to her audiobook and all of a sudden, there you are. I was like, I felt like George Costanza on Seinfeld. I'm like, worlds colliding. I know Chanae, and now I'm listening to her on Christine's book. Tell me about that.
Christine and I have known each other for a few years now. And yes, she is a writer. I wouldn't say my clients have all come from her. I know Christine has a great writing community, and some of my clients have indeed come from that community. But there are other folks here in Philly
Mm.
who, and in New York, who I was connected to prior to Christine. So yes, I would say, there are folks that I did meet through her. But I had been working with journalists before the time I knew Christine. But boy, wasn't that book incredible?
It was. And I actually, just to clarify, I wondered if you met her through your clients that were writers. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Not that I
no.
expected that she filled your
Yeah,
pipeline with writers, but yeah,
yeah.
no, I loved that book. I thought, and we're talking about the Afro minimalist, Christine Platt, who was on the show several months ago. And, she was exactly the way you describe Joy, by the way, because I did not know her. And I rarely will just reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, do you want to be on the show?" I'm moving too fast. It's happening in the background. Mostly people are asking to be on the show. We're discussing the pitches. Are they on mark? Will they be valuable to the audience? It's a really nice place to be after several years of scrappy and trying to send 9,000 emails every single week. Would you be on the show? Would you be on the show? Right. But every once in a while, someone just grabs me. And I happen to be scrolling on Instagram, and she had a post, and it was a very powerful post. And I had never heard of her. Don't know. I mean, she was probably in my feed almost every day, but it didn't stop me because, when you see the red car, you get a red car, then never all of a sudden you see red cars. But whatever the opening line of her caption was, I was just like, wait. And I read it, and it was such a real and true, honest caption. And I just was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy. Like, that is such. And she was basically saying, I'm no longer going to share a certain type of information here any longer because it keeps basically getting stolen and other people are using it for their purposes. I'm happy to give away my wisdom, my joy, my all the things, but let me be the one to give it away pretty much. You know what I'm saying? And
Exactly.
and I just, the way she worded it, the way you could tell that it was just a stomach punch to her, the way her words were probably being used without her permission and maybe possibly twisted. And I just was like, boom, right over to the profile, boom, right over to the website. Then I found out about the book. I downloaded the book. I must have walked like a million hours the next day because I kept going outside, going for a walk, listening to the book. And then I was like, I would have to come back. And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, I got to go back outside and walk again. And all of a sudden, I hear you talking about minimalist design and what it means to you. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Christine has a way with words. She always has, both
Mm,
in her writing life and her personal life with her friends. And, I want folks that haven't read that book to go and get it, the
yes.
Afro Minimalist Guide to Living with Less. I know it's in maybe its second or third printing. The book is incredible. And Christine and I, we met on Instagram years
Oh.
ago, and we became very, very close and very, very quickly. We have a lot in common. We are both the same sign, both Capricorn girls.
Mm.
And, we connected, and like I said, she's beautiful. And the book, I'm happy you enjoyed it. There's so many folks that she included in that book, and I was one of them, and it was a great experience.
Mm. Yes, I really did enjoy it because I am somebody that before I read that book, I would have said to you, yeah, I'm a minimalist because I'm just over it. I did the whole thing, built the house, decorated every
Mhm.
corner. My house is like, people come over and they're like, oh, it really is empty. You know what I'm saying? But it was different listening to the book and getting into the weeds. And I was like, right, but here's other areas where you could address. And also, she talks about getting to the root of why you hold on to certain things and, do they mean anything and yada, yada, yada. But to your point, similarly with Joy, I just DM'd her and I was like, I didn't DM her right away. I got the book. I, did more research. I just literally kept falling in love with her. That's exactly what it was. I literally was like, oh, I love this lady. And every day watching her do her thing, talking about her daughter, they're getting ready to send her daughter off to college, all the things. I just got right into it and had so much respect. And then finally I DM'd her and she was like, okay, I'll be on the show. And I was like, whoa, okay, that never happens, right? So it's just nice when people are nice. Let's just say it that way, right? So you have now, your business is 100% referral based. Was it scary to do that, Chanae? Was it an easy breezy decision because it just made sense? Tell me about it.
It was terrifying. I didn't know if I was going to have any clients. I knew I had a trusted few, and looking at the numbers as Vin would, I knew I would be okay, but for how long? And would there be others? Would this last? And it has, and especially in this zombie apocalypse we're calling a pandemic that has extended itself into a third year, perhaps. Working with people that that can understand the delays, that can understand what's going to happen when something's on a container ship 2 continents away, working with folks who will understand those things and their temperament, that makes it easy, that it makes the process easier. Let's say easier, because there are things that are going to come out the woodworks you just can't plan for. But knowing that someone trusts you to get you from the beginning to the end and will help you and stand with you along the way, whatever it takes, having that vendor client designer relationship, that's important. And that's really, really at the crux of what I do.
And so what you're saying in there is that somebody comes to you through Instagram and they're like, hey, love your work. You look amazing. All your designs are fabulous. I want to, how do I work with you? How do you handle that, Chanae?
Certainly. So we have a prospective client inquiry that one of our team members will send out, and it has numerous questions in there. But we spend a good segment on how you found us, who specifically referred you to us, and that's how we handle it. I'm sure you can guess there are lots of no's that happen because if I don't know anyone that right now at this level at this point in my career, I'm 100% referral based, and that may change over the next couple of years.
Sure.
Finances may change that. Yeah. And the community that we work in is fickle. And right now with things on container ships, like I said, in X, Y, and Z land, and contractors that don't show up, and vendors that, there's just so much that you can risk by not working with someone that understands. And so, like I said, there are lots of no's. There are folks that want to work with us and can't. But there are a good number that do. We know a lot of people in those relationships that I made over those years. They're still paying off now.
So what you're saying is that someone doesn't have to come from a referral from an actual design client, but they have to find a connection to you that you can say, if you know that person and you're friends with or a colleague with that person, then that's good enough for me to take the next conversation with you.
That's correct.
Interesting. It's funny because I just had an experience like that. I've never been through anything like that before, but there is a very, very highly regarded speaking coaching school. And I say school, they call it a school, but it's really a husband and wife team that they run coaching programs for speakers. And you only can work with them and pay them to coach you if you have a referral. And it has taken me 3.5 years to network myself to the point where I had a referral.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, they're not your average garden variety entry level speaking thing, right? And so I was like, I don't have anybody in my world. But, over the years, and then finally this fall, I reached out again and I was like, hey, it's me again. I really still want to come to your speaking school, And I said, and this is my referral. And then it came back and it was like, and to that point, to your point, Chanae, that referral that I mentioned isn't a personal friend of mine. And I didn't pretend that it was. You know what I mean? I just simply said what it was, what the relationship between me and that person was. And I said, I would love to be considered now for a roster in the next class. And so finally.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So the thing is for you, because I know when we've had the conversation about niching on the show all the way from the beginning with Nancy Ganskaufer, with Niche is Rich and Broad is Broke, and Fred Burns talking about Your Only and all the other things, I know that every designer that has had the conversation has shared their fear of finally just drawing a line in the sand, whether it was Cheryl Janis that was going to do, boutique wellness facilities, whether it be a chiropractor, yoga studio, whatever it is, and all the others in between. So give us a little moment of the first time you decide, and then here comes the first, inquiry, whether it comes from social or otherwise, that by the time you go down through the process, you're like, this is a no. Did it take you 4 times before you went, like you took it yes once and then it became, this is not how I want to work with people? Or were you just like convicted and did it?
There was one time, LuAnn, and I think sometimes when that one time happens, when you realize that this is just not a viable direction that you can go in, and I remember not going with my gut.
Yeah, right.
And I remember paying heavily for that. Both time, which is money, but then more money. And I remember feeling like I could never do that again. I could never work with someone in this way again. And so was it scary going to referral based only? It was more scary if I didn't.
Right. That's what happens. I find that we all, you can hear all day long advice, whether it's on this podcast or in a book you read, whatever it may be. But until you actually have the painful experience, a lot of people, and myself included, I've learned over the years to just say, hey, if you really respect that person and they say that's the way to go, why don't you just trust it? Because I've spent a lot of years going, nah. That would, for me, it'll work out. It'll be fine. You know what I mean? But, you get burnt and you sit there and you look in the mirror and you're like, I did this to myself.
Yep.
I knew better. I heard my inside voice tell me not to do this, and I did it anyway, right?
Yeah, and even being referral based, you still have to watch it. There's folks that will come in and they'll come in through a good referral and you'll think, this would be a great opportunity. And then something inside of you will say, don't do it.
Right.
And then because they come in through this marvelous referral has never led you astray, you will sometimes go against your gut and you will get burned.
Again.
So there's a combination of things. There's trusting your gut. Your gut doesn't lead you astray most times.
No, it can't.
And so there's that piece. And so this is both my gut. This is both years of being in a space where I know what I want to do. I know who I want to work with and I know what I'm capable of. There's that experience and trusting all of that to come together.
And so when we talk about your niche, what I'm hearing as you're describing further the process of selecting the clients to say yes to and who to say no to, you're talking about a culture fit with that person, that the personalities mesh, that there's that whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, a vibe, you want to call it a rationality, whatever it is, but it sounds like to me that you are evaluating, yes, the referral, but then you're still evaluating that person. Like, do I want to spend this next X amount of weeks, months, or years communicating with this person on the high level and the massive level, volume level that I'm going to need to? Because if you just are like, I don't really want to spend time with them, then that's a no for you as well, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's an interesting thing, right? Because most of us think, well, we're business owners, we just have to take what comes through the door. But it's not true. I know that with my chairman of the board. I have said no to probably 3 or 4 more times than I've said yes to. Because we're going to work together for a whole year. I got to be happy to show up and look at you and talk to you and be involved in you.
Exactly, exactly. And then on the flip side of that, clients have to feel that as well. These
Right.
long-term clients, that I'm with, if I'm doing multi-projects with them over several years, several homes, you know this, LuAnn, they have to like you too,
That's right.
right? And so, you grow up with these clients almost, right? You
Mm-hmm.
deal with the things that they deal with, their marriages, their divorces. You're there for all of that, and they
Mm-hmm.
have to trust you. But those opportunities can take you, to places that you wouldn't even imagine. Let me share this. I had been working on a client project for maybe three years, and maybe actually it was about 2 years. And this client is a reporter for MSNBC. And who knew when I started working with her that she'd become the person she became?
Mm.
And I decorated her space, and she was the first person who interviewed Vice President Kamala Harris
Whoa.
when she did her interview to announce her candidacy. Now, I didn't know that starting out that would happen to me. These are the importance of relationships, of the good designer client fit, and doing good work. Right? You talk
Right.
about the difference between a business and a hobby. At a hobby, you don't have to be good at this, right?
Right.
But when you're running a business, you have to do good work. And so that good work over time resulted in opportunities like that.
That's amazing. I'm not at all surprised. I mean, you just are an impressive woman, is really what you are, and you've always, just struck me that way. It's interesting, and I love the way you have, um, you know, what's the word I want to say? The way I almost want to say grown into the clarity of your own values. That's what it is. Well, and I shouldn't say that. I won't make an assumption that you grew into your values. I will say that you grew your business into your values. That's what it is. You're growing your business within values, and I'm sure were long-standing for you from a very young age. But you're bringing them to your business. That's the thing, and not everybody does that. Right. And that's the disconnect when we're not happy in our business. We're not content. We're feeling like this is a grind. This is a grunge. This isn't, the clients are good. It's because we're ignoring, to your point, our intuition and our gut. And we're not bringing those ideals that we want for our everyday just interactions into the business. Do you agree?
So true.
Mm-hmm.
You hit the nail on the head, LuAnn.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, one other thing that I want to cover. And if you have something else you want to bring up, definitely do. But tell me about this other passion project. You are just so multi-talented, lady. You have so many things going on. And I want you to tell everybody about this center that you are managing here.
So first, I want to just say that being good at multiple things isn't so bad. In fact, having multiple streams of revenue is smart. You
Mm.
know that, LuAnn. You and Vin have that window treatment company, Window Works. There's this podcast, and then all you do with your mastermind group. Not to mention you're an in-demand speaker, so you're multi-hyphenate just like me.
Yep.
But I do want to talk about the center. So the Entrepreneurial Resource Center is in the heart of North Philadelphia. And in July of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I started leading a separate team from those in my firm, a team of rock stars, really. And what we're doing is developing pathways for budding entrepreneurs solely who live in public housing. Resident leaders and executive at the Housing Authority had long discussed starting this kind of program for those who see entrepreneurship, small business ownership as a vehicle for self-sufficiency. And we created just that. We started a workshop series where industry leaders come in virtually at the moment to present on a range of topics from budgeting and cash flow to legal formation and ways to market your business. Those workshops are bi-weekly and open to everyone at no cost. And then we have a 6-month fellowship now that we've developed that provides hands-on support as well as this kind of self-paced component that takes folks on a deeper dive into their entrepreneurial journey. I'm a big believer that folks can't simply financial literacy their way out of poverty. So a part of this fellowship is that folks are eligible for up to $5,000 in funding to get them started. They could use that to get their LLC, establish a bank account, get MBE certified, and get the supplies they need to get their business started, like websites and marketing materials. We're in the middle of our second cohort of 16 Courageous Fellows, and it's a pretty popular program. We accepted about 9% of the people who applied, and it's growing. And in fact, this week we launched our Entrepreneur in Residence initiatives with two very special people who completed cohort one. They'll be doing more advanced work over a 9-month period and will be eligible for $55,000 in funding. And you know what seed money like that can do for any
Whoa.
small business,
Sure.
right? Exactly. And so you often talk about knowing whether you're running a business or pursuing a hobby, both of which can be awesome. And like we said, with a hobby, you don't actually have to be good at it. But the kicker is that being good at something is not enough to run a business. So there's
Mhm.
strategy and grit and dedication and so much more. So the program is designed to help folks with just that.
It's outstanding. And the program, so are there other criteria? In other words, is there age criteria? Do they have to have an idea, or is it just that you said that they have to be living in public housing? So beyond that, do they have to say, is it a place where they just come and say, one day I aspire to owning my own business, but I have no idea what it is? Or do they have to have a germ of an idea?
So to come to the workshops, you can anyone that has a germ of an idea can come to the workshop. But
Mm.
for the fellowship, you either have to have an idea or you can have a fledgling business. And so we don't have an educational requirement. There are no age requirements. Our cohort now is between the age of 17 and 55. Folks who are just retired and are starting new businesses. We have one woman who just retired and is starting a candle company because she always wanted to do it. We have a gentleman that's finishing high school that has a mobile car cleaning and detailing business. And so there are a wide range of businesses and age. And so there are no requirements. You don't have to have a GED. You just have to have an idea and a belief in yourself and commitment and drive. And so folks don't invest money in things like that. You know that, LuAnn. You can't
Mhm.
just get money for things like that. And so
Mhm.
that dollar component is very important.
I love it. And I love that, it also serves the business owners out there that are in business that are fledgling, like you said, because sometimes there's just this missing component on the knowledge that, like we say all the time with designers, your degree, if you go that route of getting a degree in interior design to begin with, what does it include? 1 or 2 semesters of business practice. It doesn't include a degree in business administration. And so a lot of people do find themselves owning a business, maintaining it, but not ever growing it to the point where it has resulted as a satisfactory or even a major impact in positivity on their lives or their family's lives. So to teach somebody that already has the idea, the concept, and the business running, how to run the back end to straighten things up, that's also so powerful.
Exactly.
You change that person's life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, Chanae. I love that.
I love it too. And I think it's important to share the things that I've learned and experienced in a way that can make it easier for people in my community to pursue their dreams.
Hmm.
My path through into design has been non-traditional, as has my entrepreneurial journey and all the moving parts, the networking, the building of mental capacity, the sharpening of one's skills, all of that in one program with the added investment of actual dollars is how folks can be more successful. And, I want to see that happen in my own community. I
Hmm.
read a quote recently that loosely said, if all things are equal, invest in the person who looks out of place, because they
Mm.
likely fought harder to get there. And many of our fellows fight hard. They are born into a caste that can make life challenges. So what we're doing is doing the work of bringing the resources directly to them to better their chances at success.
I love it. It's so amazing. And this is happening in Philadelphia because I know you're sort of, it seems like to me you're sort of between New York and Philadelphia half the time.
Yeah, it feels like I'm in New York and Philadelphia half the time. That kind of slowed down when the pandemic happened. I
Yes,
have
that's
a
true.
house in Philly, and so I was able to have more space out here, but we still have our spot in New York. And so I'm in Philly most of the time, but yes, I am also sometimes in New York and sometimes in DC and sometimes in Rhode Island, LuAnn.
Oh my God, you're a nut. You're so fun. Yeah, that's awesome. So is there anything that we did? You have so much, insight and, lessons and observations through your journey. Is there anything that we left out, Chanae, that we want to make sure we talk about?
I know you talk about this a lot on other podcasts, but I'm able to do all that I do simply because I've hired and have cultivated great teams, both
Mm.
at the firm and at the center. I have a number of people who are simply brilliant, and I mean that. And so I hire great people and empower them to do great things, both inside and outside the firm. So that's how I'm able to do all of these different things, is because I have folks that work for me that take good care of me. And so I just want to just want to mention that important piece.
Well, you know what? It is so important. And I have to say, right now in real time, so if you're listening to this podcast in 3 years from now, it may not be the case, but in real time, it seems every interior designer that I know is trying to hire and just trying to find good people that, fit the culture of the company and that have a good work ethic and have good values and that are willing to, grow the space together, grow the company together. And for you to be sitting and having that already, I'm so happy for you, Chanae, because you've cultivated that. You've attracted that. Okay. But it is a difficult time to find good people right now.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And so I'm glad I've had a good number of folks that have been with me for a couple of years and believe in the dream of the vision of Oloro Interiors and have stuck by me. And so I'm grateful for that.
Definitely. Awesome. I love it. Oh my goodness. I don't really want to end the conversation. I just want to talk to you the rest of the day, actually. But, you're a busy lady and there's no grass growing under your feet. So I really do want to say how much I value and appreciate you. And you have always been a good, honest person to me. You have never held back from talking to me from your heart, and I've always appreciated that. And I want you to know that I've learned from you, and I'm grateful for it and for all the conversations and all the topics that we've covered.
Thank you so much, LuAnn. It's really, really been a pleasure.
I have a ton of admiration for Chanae, not just because of the tenacity she showed along her journey to design, but also because of her energy, her integrity, and the appreciation that she shows for people who help her along the way. And Chanae's approach to building a design career was unconventional, right? She knew she had this talent and this passion, and she wanted to go for it. But she also knew she needed to make some money along the way. So she started renting out that commercial space. And not only did this give her some financial security, right, but it actually ended up giving her the foundation of a client and referral base that would eventually become the interior design firm, right? So in some ways, what Chanae did is sort of counterintuitive. It goes against what sometimes I have told my chairman of the board clients: don't distract yourself with something else. Let's keep the eye on the needle here. But it paid off, and it paid off well. And it goes to show a couple of things. First, never ignore your inside voice. If you have a clear vision for something and it makes good business sense, explore it. Especially in a case like this where it is a reasonable expectation. It was a reasonable expectation that some of these rental clients could possibly become full service clients, design clients, as they did, right? So there's that little germ of, well, and if that, right? And the second is leaning on your, as we call them here lovingly, our Erica Ward transferable skills, building on the things in your mental and professional toolbox, just as Chanae did. And I also just want to sidetrack here. If you are a new listener to the show and you're hearing me say this often enough, your Erica Ward transferable skills, just go back and listen to episode number 6 with Erica Ward. It was the first time that someone highlighted to me how everything you have done previous to the moment that you open your own business impacts the way you'll run that business. And she identified it by saying, take your skills that you have learned in other places and transfer them to your design firm. And so since then, I pay homage to Erica every single time because that was something that she pointed out to me, and it has always stuck with me. All right. Okay. Now, I also want to highlight a few other important takeaways from my conversation with Chanae. The first is adaptability. I love the story when she said one client asked if the rental space had a bathroom. Well, it didn't, but she didn't want to lose the project. So she figured out a way to offer up her own apartment instead and make it work, right? This sort of intuitive thinking on your toes adaptability is so much of what it takes to build a profitable, successful business. And I'm not saying that you always say yes, all right? As Chanae said, there are plenty of times to say no. But sometimes when a roadblock comes your way, think creatively and problem solve out of the box. It's helpful in every and all businesses, all right? And I also want to talk about Chanae's niche. She made this decision to turn away business that didn't come to her through a referral. She's also determined that she wants to work primarily with writers, creating spaces for a specific type of person, right? Both of these decisions have led her to financial success because they have led her to be joyful in her work and have this relationship and this camaraderie. And when you're in that zone, your work is better. Everything is better. And then what happens is people want to tell everybody about you because you're just so darn good at what you're doing. But it's because you're so happy showing up to do it, right? So, and the last and the final thing is that we all know, and we've learned, and Chanae pointed out again today, how important relationships are in business. And she has reached a place where she has decided that in her work and in her greater world that the line in the sand is drawn. You're a good person. I feel connected to you. This is it. And if not, no. All right. And so when you get to the point of this confidence and you can say no to the wrong projects and the wrong people, you know what happens. It opens up your time and your space and your energy for the right ones. Right. So niching is scary. It always is. But out of all the conversations I've had with designers who have decided to niche, I've never heard someone say they wished they hadn't, right? Never has any designer ever explained that they niched down so narrow that they said, bad decision. So just like Chanae, it almost always brings clarity, peace, and ultimately profitability, all right? Another takeaway from Chanae that I heard in her conversation today is don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? Chanae was inspired by Joy Moyler. She had never seen a Black designer before she heard of Joy. This fueled her belief that she could and she should do this. So you showing up, who are you inspiring, right? Think about that. Who are you possibly? Who's possibly seeing you do what you do? All right. So, and the other takeaway is don't be afraid to reach out to the people who do inspire you. You're not always going to hear back, and it won't always lead to a relationship. But don't regret trying. That's the thing about it, right? I have to say, I'm so honored to know Chanae in real life and to call her a friend. I hope that her story serves as a reminder that the path to a well-designed business isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it takes selling plants out of the trunk of your car or renting out your own apartment. Sometimes it takes creative thinking and going against the grain, but you can do it. All right. So thank you, Chanae, for being here with me today. Before I go, I want to remind you about the next Inside Voice, Outside Voice. All right. So go to InsideVoiceOutsideVoice.com and you can sign up and you can join us. And it's where we're talking about real talk, real questions, real things that you want to know. We're going to continue a little bit this month on this topic of goal setting. So we've taken it from an idea to how to get it on paper. And now, by the time we hit February, maybe you're losing a little steam, getting to your goals. This is about where if you've started an exercise program, you're starting to use your treadmill as a hanger instead of as an exercise machine, right? So a little juice, right? Let's share some stories. Let's do some things. Let's make sure that we all together come together to help each other be accountable. All right, so go to InsideVoiceOutsideVoice.com. All righty. I want to thank you for showing up today, and I want to remind you always, decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.